Welcome. This talk will be in English and in Farsi, and I've seen quite a few here. Is it called Farsi? It's not just the written language. So I've seen quite a few, I think, who will understand the original language as well. And for you, it might be an experience like some of the films of Abbas Kiarostami, where you get everything from at least two sides and have to decide yourself which one is the one that fits you best. Could you relate to that? If we talk in Farsi and in English, we have a translation, we have questions, so we have already everything on two different levels. I think somehow this is like your films.
این 2 ساعت به نظرم نهایتا هر دوشون به 1 ساعت میرسه، اونم فهم دیالوگه، ولی فیلم الزاماً فکر کنم در 2 ساعت نیست، ممکنه در ساعت‌های بیشتری هم باشه و اونها یکی نباشه با هم دیگه. فکر کنم تفاوت جزئی بین این هست. ترجمه وفادار به دیالوگی که از قبل تعیین شده، بنابراین اگر خوب باشه که ترجمه ما بسیار خوبه، میخواد که دوتا رو یکی بکنه، در حالی که ما قصد نداریم که معناهای گوناگونی که از یه فیلم میاد بیرون رو به یک معنای واحد تبدیلش کنیم.
Well, let's say that there is a difference, is that here there is a common speech. There is a dialogue, a speech which is given in a first language, and then the translation, when it's good, and it's hopefully good here, the aim of the translation is to be as faithful and as close as possible to the first speech. And so we get there is a kind of convergence to a unique meaning. Whereas in the film, if there are several dimensions, our intention is not to converge to a unique meaning.
تازه من مطمئن نیستم که به عنوان نه سازنده، به عنوان یک بیننده یا بیننده فیلم‌های دیگران یا خواننده کتاب‌های دیگران، این میل دارم باشه که همه چیز رو به چیز واحد تبدیل بکنم. گاهی حتی تضاد بین معنی که از یک اثر میاد بیرون به من کمک میکنه که به عنوان خواننده یا به عنوان بیننده معنای سومی رو پیدا بکنم و اونجاست که به نظر من یک اتفاق خوب میفته. چیزی که در ذهن خلاق سازندش اصلا نبوده، 1 بوده و 2، و اینجا تماشاگر یا خواننده خلاق به یه معنای سوم میرسه.
And I would say that myself, not as a creator, not as an artist who produces a work, but as a viewer or as a reader or as somebody who receives a work of art, I don't wish in any way to converge to a unique meaning. I don't want to achieve, when I receive a work of art, one meaning and to be able to have a single interpretation of it. I think on the opposite, that the most interesting works of art are those in which I can find a contradiction. So even if the author, him or herself, is not aware of this double tension between two possible meanings, if there is this contradiction, that would invite me as a creative spectator or viewer or receiver of the work of art to get into a third level of meaning, which is the fruit of this contradiction. So this is the kind of art I'm interested in as a receiver.
You have also put this in other words when you said that as an artist, as a filmmaker, you're rather the one who asks the questions than the one who gives the answers. Is that correct?
طبیعتاً به نظرم هنرمندا نمیدونم تعریف گوناگون راجع بهشون شده، ولی اون تعریفی که من خودم در مورد خودم اعتقاد دارم نزدیکتره کودکن. بچه‌هایی هستن که هیچ وقت قانع نمیشن به پاسخهایی که در کودکی شنیدن و فکر میکنن با طرح مجدد اون میتونن به جوابای بهتری برسن، ولی طبیعتاً پاسخ هر سوالی رو ندارن.
There are plenty of definitions of artists. I think the definition in which I acknowledge myself most is that artists are nothing but children. And they are stubborn children who never accept the answers that are given to them and go on their lifetime asking the same questions, repeating the same questions, and not trying to put up with the answers that adults give them just to get rid of them.
Okay, let's try that on the film. I think most of you have seen Copy Conform today. Those who have not will certainly go and see it after this talk, I think, because there are quite a few of the principles you have talked about visible in the film. There's a scene where a man and a woman come into a cafe in Italy, and the woman who serves them coffee thinks they're man and wife, which we think they're not. But since the woman treats them like man and wife and talks to Juliette Binoche as if she were there with her husband, she takes it up and they act like man and wife from that moment on. So they start making a copy conforme of something that has been proposed to them from the outside. That could be one principle of the film, one basic principle.
بله ولی میخواین که من چه جوابی بدم؟
What am I supposed to answer to that?
میتونم یه سوال بکنم چه کسایی فیلم رو دیدن؟
Maybe I can ask a question. Who has seen the film?
تقریبا همه دیدن.
Almost everyone. Then.
خب اونایی که فیلم رو دیدن به نظرم احتیاجی ندارن به پاسخ من. اونهایی هم که فیلم رو ندیدن بهتره برن فیلم رو ببینن.
Let's say that those who have seen the film don't need my answer, and those who haven't seen it should go and see it.
Congratulations. I think it's always humbling for us film critics when we get to that point, but it's the artist's answer, and I think I had it coming.
میدونم همیشه منتقدان میدونن که چجوری تحریک کنن فیلمسازا رو برای اینکه یه پاسخی بگیرن که یه بریکی باشه مقابل چیزای جدی که تا حالا شنیدن. به هر حال اگه شما فیلم الان تا حالا دیده باشین طبیعتاً یه مقدار خسته این و تایمینگ تماشا یا گوش دادن به چیزی رو فوتبال دوستا تعیین کردن 90 دقیقه بیشتر نیست. بنابراین شما یک زمان زیادی رو روی صندلی‌ها نشستین. سعی میکنم که من جوابامو خیلی کوتاه بدم که خستتون نکنه.
Well, and you film critics are always very good at suggesting a provoking answer that would be a kind of break for people. All you people must be very tired. You've spent a couple of hours now watching a film, and now you have to listen to us. And evil football lovers know that 90 minutes is the maximum time of concentration you should have on a show going on. So I'll try and give short answers not to bore you too much.
Which leaves the job of being boring to me, of course, but that doesn't matter. I would not like to talk too much about copy and the principle of copies because that leads too far again. But let's say one thing is definitely clear as we talk of film copies. There is one work you've created which exists in several copies now, and these copies are projected in cinemas all over the world. Now, the copy is nothing. The experience of the audience here is that what creates the work of art. Is that something in itself, or is it a whole process for you? The experience of this audience, does it link up with the experience of other audiences you have experienced, or is it a unique experience for you?
خوشبختانه یا بدبختانه من این شانس رو ندارم که همه تماشاگرای خودم رو ملاقات بکنم. برای اینکه هر کدوم اونا فیلم رو یک جور میبینن و گاهی ممکنه هست که بعد از گفتگو باشون من کاملا متقاعد بشم که باید این کار رو ترک کنم وقتی ببینم که هیچ جوری نتونستم هیچ کدوم از اون ایده‌هایی که در ذهنم بوده رو به اونها منتقل کنم.
Unfortunately or fortunately, I do not meet all the viewers of my films because each of them has a different interpretation of the film. And maybe if I got to speak to each of them, I would just drop this craft. I would stop making films because I would realize that in spite of all my efforts, there is not even a single of my preconceptions of the ideas that I had beforehand that I managed to transmit through the film.
ولی این واقعیت الان به حدود 40 ساله که دارم این کارو میکنم، خیلی از مواقع دیدم که تماشاگرها خیلی ذهن فعالتر و خلاقتری دارن از ما به عنوان سازنده. گاهی با طرح سوالایی یک جایی با فیلم رفتن که هرگز فیلمسازان نرفتن. یعنی اونا در واقع تونستن از فیلم خام و کاملا نپخته ما به یک معناهای خیلی خیلی عمیق درونی شخصی خودشون برسن. بنابراین این شانس رو خودشون به خودشون میدن برای اینکه از یک چیز خاصی رو برای خودشون کشف کنن و استنباط بکنن.
But now I've been doing this job for 40 years and I've been meeting people who see my film for 40 years. And I know absolutely that they have their mind as film viewers is much more active and much more creative than the mind of that we have, us film directors, because they are able to really make their own work through the raw material that is given to them. The film is completely raw, and they proceed it, and they make it theirs, and they try and finally get to an interpretation which is totally personal and which they relate to as an individual, and which has taken the film much further than what we could preconceive.
من در یک جلساتی شبیه این به هر حال در طول این سالها شرکت کردم و گفتگو کردیم، یعنی بیشتر گفتم متاسفانه، ولی همیشه سعی کردم که ذهن تماشاگر رو به هم نریزم با حضور خودم، چون گاهی فکر میکنم این بدشانسی شماست که امشب من مقابلتون نشستم. بهترین شکلش این که بعد که فیلم تمام میشه شما سالم بریم بیرون و حتی با کنار دستیتون هم نخواهین راجع به فیلمی که دیدین حرف بزنین. یعنی در واقع خاصیت سینما اینه، تمام زیباییش نسبت به هنرهای دیگه اینه که بین شما و یارتون، کسی که همراهتونه، یک فاصله جدی میندازه و در تاریکی شما میمونین و اثر میمونه به شما. و این میل، یعنی تفاوتی است که نظر من سینما با هر هنر دیگه داره. برای همینم جوابا که به هر حال من به شما میدم فکر کنم که بعد در حدی باشه که نذارم ذهن شما به هم بریزه با تصور شخصی و قطعی که راجع به فیلم خودتون با خودتون دارین. من سعی میکنم اونو به همش نزنم، بهتون قول میدم.
But, I've been in sessions like this for ages, and after many films during which, unfortunately, I speak more than I listen. But what I really try hard to do is not to confuse the spectators with what I might say after a film, because sometimes I feel that you audience are quite unfortunate to be sitting here and listening to me, because what you should do is see the film and then get out of the theater and not even share your views with your partner with whom you came to the cinema. Because I think this is really the privilege of going to see a film rather than another form of art. The privilege of cinema is that it puts you in a direct relationship with the work of art. It plunges you in the darkness and puts a distance even between you and the person who penetrated the room with you. So you are just there with the film, and then you should leave the place with the film and with your own perception of the film. So even if I'm here to answer your questions, and I will answer them, I will try not to put any confusion in the viewer's mind concerning the interpretation, which is theirs, which is personal to each of them, and which is quite determined for each of them.